no passion, no desire. We will discuss whether McKenna's mentality really does need to be questioned. Welcome back to Where the Town Walk with myself, Luke, and today we've got Ian and Rich talking all things Ipswich, including this week's A to Z and tweet of the week. Rich, let's get straight into it, straight deep in this. Let's talk about the mentality. The mentality going into the game. I think we lost the game in the press conference. McKenna comes out with his quote of, "Oh, there might be a fixture pile up if we win the game." That's not the mentality. We wanted to go in with a real desire. We were going to make 10 changes. That obviously did happen, but it's the way you lose the game, and we didn't really show ourselves in any good glory, did we?
No, we spoke last week, didn't we, Luke, on here about like what was our predictions and how we thought the game would go. Look, am I that worried that we've gone out the FA Cup? No. But it's the manner of the defeat and how we played. And there's a lot of players there, Luke, who are probably not going to play a lot of football now, between now and the end of the season. Yeah, you've got your Ben Johnsons and even Jens Kajus, you know, he's coming there. Now you've got a bit of a logjam in the midfield. We sing about it in our song, don't we? The FA Cup. It's in our history. We've got a star on our shirt. And I just think, not just Town, I think you look across football now, it's secondary. It's not as important. We all know where the money is this season. We want to get back to the Premier League. I do get that, but we were told that we got a squad, super like a Championships All Stars. You know, all this. If you look at that team that played on Friday, only Elkan Baggett's probably the one young player in there. Look, we had some experienced players on that pitch who we paid a lot of money for. Was it a second string? That team could easily play in the Championship. You know, that'd be good enough for a lot of clubs. It's disappointing. It's one of those where we've just got to suck up. If we go to Wrexham this weekend and win, I think everyone will just be happy and we'll move on. If we go to Wrexham on Saturday and we don't get a result, I think questions have to be asked. And we've said about the mentality of the squad. Kieran's comments, they didn't surprise me, but I think if you're a fan and you've travelled all that way, probably 10 hours, you spent a lot of money, you probably want a little bit more. And I think sometimes now with the FA Cup, it's just too easy for these clubs to sack off games. You know, it's the mentality of winning football matches. It breeds confidence, and we didn't play other than 10 minutes at the start of the game, 10 minutes at the start of the second half. Other than that, it was a hard watch, wasn't it? Yeah,
really was. And you're right. Winning breeds winning. You can't switch it off. If you go into every game with that mentality, that's it. 10 changes. That was always going to happen. We meant to have this real good depth in squad, which we will touch on later in the show. But to lose the game in that manner with that attitude, Ian, it was really frustrating, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've spoken about this before as well. You know, enthusiasm breeds. Enthusiasm kind of breeds people's wish to go and win. It's infectious, and I think that McKenna in his press conference didn't have a great deal of enthusiasm. There was a veiled speech there, wasn't there, about, we'll see how it goes. And I think, look at the players, that cascaded down to the players with the exception of maybe Palmer and Akpom. I don't think there's a great deal of enthusiasm for the other players. And there's fans who have travelled a great distance on a Friday night in what was particularly poor weather. If you can match the enthusiasm of the fans on the pitch, then we're happy if you lose. You've actually gone out and given it some. But when you've got players like Baggett, you've got players like Jacob Greaves and Kayusi, they should be really fighting to justify their pace. And I said in the chat in the week, I think some of these players have got comfortable with the rotation. There's no requirement for me to push to get my place because I'll be rotated one week or the other. Why do I need to worry about it? I get a weekend at home with the wife going shopping. That's almost like the attitude they've got. And, you need to be fighting every game saying, I want to be the starter and I don't expect to get rested. I want to play every week. And people have got too comfortable with if I'll get rest next week. And I don't like it. And to go out in the cup, like I said, we probably wanted to not be in the FA Cup, but in a better way. The only club really in the last 20 years has actually gone out and said, we don't want to be in the FA Cup, was when Man United pulled themselves out. And that they got a massive kickback on that one. So, as cliche as in, concentrate on the league. But going forward, we can't afford to rely on other teams to slip points like we have done all season. It's now on us to kickstart and get going because the teams around us are finding form and we need to do the same pretty quick, and that starts next Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. So some really good points in there. I think you're right. I was very frustrated with McKenna's comments, but then the players do have the responsibility themselves to try and grab that shirt and go, no, this is why you should be playing me in the starting 11, etc. But none of them did it. They all played at 80% capacity. Really, it was a poor watch. And you're right. It's going into the next game now. It puts a lot of pressure on it, doesn't it, Rich? Because it's kind of right. We've done. Reason we've not, made 10 changes and not played at full capacity against Wrexham in the cup is for the league. So now it puts a lot of pressure on that game, and that game against Wrexham, it puts a lot of pressure on the players to really perform. And if we don't get 3 points, the fan base is not going to be happy.
I'll go back to, I think it's probably about 10 years ago, Luke, when we played Man United in the League Cup at Old Trafford. I went to that game that night. And Man United went full strength. Mick McCarthy I think he changed the whole 11. Off the back of, we were playing Bristol City on the Saturday in the league, and then we didn't win that game. So, yeah, look, Wrexham, we haven't really laid a glove on them in 2 games, Luke, so far. They drew 0-0 at Portman Road, and they were pretty comfortable in that game. And then the game on Friday night. What I'd like to know is, when they're going back on that bus on Friday night, or they might have flown back maybe, does that really hurt them players that they've lost that game and that they're out the FA Cup? It's just another game to them. I totally agree with Ian. Where's the hunger in your squad? I'll tell you what worried me in the week when I read the Ben Johnson quotes about, he didn't want to leave town, he wanted to be part of something. He's on a very good contract, but he's not playing football. And that, to me, sums up probably football as in general nowadays. That where's the hunger in some of these players? It's all right, you're picking up the money, but surely you're training all week. You want to be pulling on your shirt on a Saturday and going out there and fighting for 3 points. I think it's too easy nowadays for footballers just to sit back and think, yeah, I might get a game in a couple of weeks, or I might be on the bench, might come for a few minutes. I just don't think there's no hunger there.
Yeah, that is obviously a concern. Let's get into it. We mentioned it at the top of the show, the squad depth. We thought at the start of the season, once obviously all the transfer window done, we've got real good depth within our squad. It's hard to judge it just off that game because, like I said, everybody was playing at sort of 80% capacity by the looks of it anyway. Do we have strength in depth? You look across, I mean, Egley's he's come into a little bit of stick the last couple of days because of his obviously big old price tag. He's not really done much of note at all. He's only a young boy, but he's not obviously done much at all. Then you look at Jens Kajusta. He came from Napoli. He's obviously been a part of us last season. Had a fairly good season within a disappointing season. Hasn't done nowhere near as well as we all expected. Do you think, Ian, that there's going to be we really need to look and go, right, do we actually have the squad depth? Because it's going to be important for the rest of the season.
I think as we go into this final third of the season, we don't have the luxury of rotating. I think you need to stick with a much more consistent starting 11 because you need to build on momentum. As points become much more valuable, you're looking over your shoulder or you're looking at the scoreboard or you're checking the papers. That really does need a kind of team you can go to and rely on. I said it a couple of weeks back that I would love to support in a left back as well, because I really don't think we have proper cover at left back either. We've got lots of make do's. We can throw Greaves out there. We can put Jack Clark back there, Ben Johnson out there. I think every other position is probably covered off with a like for like. Maybe not the same quality in every position, but certainly for me, left back has been an issue. And we noticed that, didn't we? I think Baggett was mightily out of his depth in that game. So, yeah, I would like to see us really kind of knuckle down on his first team. And he does have a first team in his head. I guess he wants us to see really what's happening with Dan Neil. Is he going to be threatening Taylor and Kajusta for that other midfielder pivot? Because that's probably been the most disappointing part of our season so far is goal involvements from those two positions. They've literally been non-existent. Yeah. And you think back to last 2 years, we've always had goals in that area.
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe try and spin this as positive, the Wrexham game as positively as I can. I think Daniel was probably the only slight positive from the game. I thought he was quite tidy, Rich. I can see him coming into the team, working alongside Matthew Sewell. What did you think of the new signing?
I don't think he'll play next Saturday. He would for me. Look, you've brought him in for a reason, Luke. Now we've got no time to waste. We've got 16 games to go, and because. And I've heard McKenna say it and fans say it. Since September, we've taken the most points. But we can't just write off the first 6 games we played because players like Hutchinson, we didn't know if he was going to be here. We bought players late in the window. That is still going to count towards your total at the end of the season. So for now, I totally agree with Ian here. You've got to get your first 11 on the pitch. But after, Wrexham on Saturday, we've got 3 midweek games on the bounce. So we all know that McKenna will rotate because he does. You know, I wouldn't personally now. You're going to have some injuries, possibly suspensions, but you need to get your first 11 playing. Dan Neil, for me, he would be playing Luke on Saturday. I thought he was okay. He played a role in the goal, didn't he? Give the ball away from a throw-in. Another poor goal. We're just masters of our own downfall sometimes because there was no real threat there, was it? We've got a throw-in. We've given the ball away, and they've broken and they've scored. So that's frustrating. But yeah, Daniel, he would play Saturday for me, but I think Jack Taylor comes in. I think we could sit here now, Luke, and pick the team with everyone fit. We know what the team would be.
Yeah, you're right. And I think I agree with both of you because Richie just made the point of that. No matter what, we kind of know he's going to rotate because we've got the 3 midweek games. But as Ian touched on, that's too comfortable. He shouldn't be rotating for rotation's sake. There's 16 games. We need to make every game count. So there's no games to go, we'll rest 4 or 5 or whatever. No. Yes, you might pick up the odd injury. You might, but it's worth the risk. Is worth it because there's 16 games left. We need to win as many of them games as possible. So yeah, both absolutely spot on. Let's get into our next game, which is obviously Wrexham. We touched on that at the start. There's a lot to learn from the game, isn't there? I think that's the only thing we can take. They probably won't make as many changes as what we have, so I think their team will be fairly similar. I think there's a few dangers. I think they love overloading in the wing positions. That's what they were doing, weren't they? They were getting their fullbacks nice high and wide, and they were creating overloads out there, which I think when Leif Davis comes in, which is obviously expected to start at left back, sometimes he can get exposed when that happens. So that'll be something to look at. Ian, we'll start with you, please, mate. What do you expect from the game? Do you expect us to play completely different? And are you expecting 3 points? What's your score predictions, mate?
I think that the Wrexham team did a really good job of giving Parkinson a headache for Saturday. You know, players who had cameo appearances in the season so far came on, had a cracking game. I thought Rathbone was outstanding. He was reminding me of Mickey Thomas from the 80s. And he still had, Sheaf and Scarf on the bench. So they're better players. So I think they will probably come back at us similar tactics because we didn't change our tactics. We just changed the personnel. Why change something if it worked first time round? And they neutralised us at Portman Road as well, like Rich said. I think they'll become straight at us. It'll be interesting to see who we start up in the number 9 because I think that 1, you defend from the front, and 2, we need to have someone credible up front. That isn't with Hurst. I think maybe Azon will start on Saturday. Maybe that'll be a little bit more lively with Mehmeti from the start as well. It's about these crucial players who are going to link up. Who are we going to be starting in the middle? Will it be Taylor? Will it be Dan? Is Jaden Philogene going to be fit for the left wing, or we go back with Jack Clark on the left wing to start with? Is Wes going to come out on the right hand side? There's a lot of ifs and buts there. So, I think much the same as what we had on Friday night. We just need to deal with it better.
Do you want to shift up front, Ian? Because I don't like the sound of Hurst or Azon, if I'm honest with you. It's not Pickens, mate. I don't want to go. No, I'm not going to touch on it. I was going to talk about why did we not bring number 9 in? But we've sung that hymn. We spoke about that plenty. Let's leave that there. But what do you expect, Rich? Do you with Azon or Hurst up top? Do you expect to get 3 points? What are we thinking for the game? What's your score predictions, mate?
It's going to be a tough game. I think Kiefer Moore comes back in for them. He's got a perm now, Luke. What's going on with his barnet? Look lovely, didn't he, when he come on, Kiefer? He's a lovely, handsome man, isn't he? Look, we know what we're going to expect from them. I think they're going to get in their faces. They're going to make it hard. Set pieces. There was a run of about 5 corners, weren't there, on Friday night that they were loading them balls into spots. What I see from, not talking about Town, when I watched that game last Monday, Sheffield United versus Borough, everything that Ipswich aren't. Pace. They play quick. They're on the break. Borough look a very good bet for the top 2, Luke. And I know there's a big game tomorrow night, which is going to affect us when they go to, obviously, CBS. But That's why I want to see Town playing on the front foot. We're too slow sometimes. When we play with a bit of pace, we look a lot better side. But I sit here and I know how we're going to play. It's no secret how Ipswich Town are going to play. I think it'll be a tough game. I'm going 1-0.
1-0. Yeah. So say we do draw 1-0, Rich. We've obviously chucked away the game in the cup. Then we go get a draw. What do you think the reaction from the fan base is going to be like? Because they're not going to draw, are they?
No, look, the social media is just a small percentage of fans, isn't it? And some are louder than others. Look, the pressure's on now to deliver. We've got no cup games to worry about now. We've got 16. We can spin it, cup finals, whatever you want to call it. But the margin for error now, Luke, is pretty slim, I would think. Because you look now, Millwall have gone above us. Yeah, we got 2 games in hand. Still got to go and win them games. And the pressure's going to be on. It's still away from home for me where questions are going to be asked about Town. At home, look, we've got Borough to come. We've got Millwall. We've got Hull. They're coming to our place now. You know, we've played them at theirs. So they're on our turf. We need to beat them. It's when we go to these away games, can we pick up enough points? You know, Wrexham, I was quite impressed with them. I did say at the start of the season, I'll be surprised if Parkinson was still there come into the season. But he's done a fantastic job. You know, they're in the 5th round, first time for 25 years. There's a bit more hunger in for them, I thought, on Friday night than there was for Town, which is a bit disappointing because they got a game on Tuesday night and we haven't. So we don't know, they might pick up some injuries there, but Wrexham at home are a tough nut to crack, Luke. They've obviously spent some money, but we've got to go there with the right mentality. We're more than capable of winning, you know, if we've got that right mentality. If we don't get the result, stay off the socials on Saturday night because it will be an absolute meltdown, because it always is.
Yeah, it always is. If we lose, drop points, it's a bit of head knocking around social media, but sometimes it's, I don't know, sometimes it's justified, sometimes it's not. But yeah, we shall see. It's going to be a tough game. It's not going to be one that we think we can play our starting 11 and go and win. It's going to be a difficult game. Right, Ian, let's move on to our A to Z feature, please. So we're on to the letter Q, which is a difficult letter. There's not much to do with the Town with the letter Q, but we've got a few to talk about. Ian, can you take it away, please, mate?
Yeah, I mean, there's only a couple of players I can think of. So rather than go for play, I went for what was a fairly, in my own personal history of following Ipswich, quite a prominent, and that was a queue for a quarter-final of the FA Cup. And I've been following Ipswich away since about 1977. Went to Burnley away in the League Cup in a Tuesday evening. That was a bit of a trip, but nothing compared to going to the Den, 1978, Ipswich Millwall. I'd just been watching a documentary on BBC a few weeks before, and I've gone about Harry the Dog and these other guys who went to games dressed in surgeons' outfits. And I'm like, well, they look a bit of a rowdy bunch. Next thing, though, we get drawn away at Millwall. And I'm like, okay, let's just get into Millwall. Let's have a 1-0 win, get out and go home. No, we had to go there and absolutely smash them. I think Mara got a hat-trick. And I just remember being sat there right next to the home fans and just seeing them dismantle the gates on the pitch, fighting policemen. And my mum was next to me. She goes, "You're not going anywhere." And we sat and watched the whole game while everybody else was out of their seats and legged it. And it was a good day out, but probably for the wrong reasons. Although it led to us getting to the FA Cup semi-finals. Yeah, so for me, that will always stick in my mind. The quarter-final of the FA Cup against Millwall.
Love it. What about yourself, Rich? Who you got for Ipswich Town?
I can't match that story. I'm going back to the relegation season. Sorry, everybody. 2019, and we signed a big German up front from Huddersfield Town. He didn't really do a lot. I remember he scored against Leeds, Luke, in the last game of the season, and we beat Leeds 3-2. Colin Quainer. Yeah, he won't go down in the another number 9 who played for Ipswich that won a lot of good. There's a theme there.
Yeah, there is. Oh, right. We're on to the tweet of the week, but I want to do a little slightly different spin on it because since the game against Wrexham, there's been a lot of talk about our squad and our recruitment, etc. So the tweet is our recruitment has been dog shit. That's the tweet. But what I want to do, I want to go through not every player that we signed in the January transfer window and the summer transfer window, but we're going to take out a couple of them. And I want to say whether you think it's a tick or a cross. So we'll start with someone who's getting a little bit of stick at the moment, whether it's just by not, but it's Sinje Wale Egele. Did I pronounce that all right, Rich? Was that all right for you?
Yeah, it's good. Good. Do you remember when I first pronounced it, didn't I? Yeah, you done well there.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So we'll start with you, Rich. Is in the tick section or is he in the cross section, Eggley, for his current performances?
It has to be a cross, doesn't it? I see a lot of people that they're giving him a bit of a free pass because he's obviously young. He's come from a foreign country, you know. I look at someone like Jude Bellingham, Luke, who went to Dortmund. Then he went to Real Madrid. He was a young lad. And look how he's ripped it up. He's a different level. But the trouble is that it's the transfer fee that Egele doesn't pick that. But when you're signing the record championship signing and you're coming in, I'm expecting a little bit more than 2 goals and 1 or 2 assists. He looks bereft of confidence, Luke, at the minute. He probably needs taking out of the team and just sitting on the bench and coming on for just dip him in when you need him. Look, we don't know if Wes is going to be fit for Saturday. If he is, he's obviously going to be the starter. And then I'd have Casey McAteer as the backup because you know what you're getting from them too. Eggley he's talented, but at the minute there is a lot of question marks against his name, so it's got to be a cross.
Okay, Akpom for you, Ian. What do you think of Akpom? He scored 2 goals, isn't it?
Oh.
What do you think?
For me, that's a championship manager selection, isn't it? You go into the game, right? Who's got the best goals from last year? I'll buy him. We should have learned our lesson. We did it with Sammy Smodics, get the best goals. Doesn't guarantee it's going to work for us. I mean, the guy is a beast. And for me, what was a highlight, there was an interview a little while ago and someone going, oh, how do you feel about potentially being put into the number 9? And he turned and goes, well, that's the position I'm used to playing. So I'm like, there we go. You know, we've got a guy, we're forcing him into number 10 when he is a number 9. I mean, there's no doubting his ability. We saw that a couple of years ago in the championship. But for us this year, he's struggled. There have been a couple of parts of his game over the last 2 or 3 fixtures where you can see there is something there. There's a lot of huff and puff and not a lot of product at the end. So for me, it's probably an X for that one at the moment as well, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely. Let's try and brighten it up a little bit. Matthew Seabar, Rich. I'm going to say straight. For me, I think he's a tick. I think he's a good player, and I think he's got a lot more to come as well. What do you think, Rich?
No, massive tick, isn't it? I think that he's. If you voted for Player of the Year today, Luke, he'd win it hands down. He's still managing to just walk that tightrope, and he's on 9. I think he's gone 10 games without a yellow card. So he's obviously he's learnt from the master, and he's Sammy Morsey. So because he was good at that navigating through. So Matasiwa is a big tick. Yeah,
definitely. Ian Azon, what were you thinking? Is that? I mean, he's come into the team a lot more recently, hasn't he? Of late, he's been a starter really in the starting 11, if we're going to call it that. So, what do you think? Is that a tick or a cross?
That started as a cross for me, but that's starting to go into the hold position. It may well prove to be a tick if we can utilise him better. I think that with Mehmeti coming into the team, we may see that Azon comes into his own because he feeds on these through balls, and that's not what we've been doing. We get the ball to the edge of the box, it sprays left 9 times out of 10. That doesn't suit Azon. You know, he's not going to be winning crosses. I mean, that's what Hurst should be doing. But when the ball goes left, it never gets crossed. It just ends up running back in. So for me, he was an X. He's heading towards a tick if we can maybe see a couple of conversions over the next few games. But again, he's got to get the opportunity to start the game to do that. And so we'll see what happens come maybe when we come back to Portman Road for the Swansea game. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely. So we've named a couple of players there and said whether they were been a success of late. Let's now look at it as the broad aspect. So I want to compare it to Wrexham, who obviously we played last week, going to play them again this week. Every season they get promoted, they do bring in 8 or 9 players, and they tend to gel really, really quickly. It hasn't happened with us. We went into the Premier League, we brought in 10, 12, whatever the number was, and it didn't work. Then the same has happened this season. We've brought in quite a few different players. It still hasn't worked. What do we need to look at, Rich? Is it the type of system that we're playing? Is it the culture? Because obviously we have spoke about mentality today. What do you think it is? And at the start of the season, you picked up on it and you said during this show that we gave away certain games and that could come and bite us up the arse. Do you think that there needs to be something to come into play where we go, no, we get these new signings in and we hit the ground running? Because if we do get promoted, there might be another breed of players that we have to bring in.
It's hard, like when Ian talks there about like an ACPOM, the trouble is, Luke, we've got such a big squad, and we say about the rotation, some players need to have a run of games to get your form, but an ACPOM comes on for 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. Then he'll start a game, then he's back on the bench. So you're never really getting that flow, are you, really? So, look, I'm not really sure. Look, if we get promoted, how we recruit in the summer, I think, has to be a whole lot different than the last time we were in the Premier League, because we just went for good Championship players, didn't we? Have we got that scouting network in Europe, overseas, where we can get players that like Sunderland did? Or is it going to be a case of, because if we go for the same type of player that we went for before, it will end in the same result and we'll end up getting relegated again? But people could say, yeah, but you've signed a Mehmeti who was a Championship player. I think he could be a little bit different because you've only spent 3 million there. So we're very fortunate that we can pick a player up like him and he could be a success in this division, and he could get you promoted. And he might not be good enough for the Premier League, and you might say thanks very much. But we have wasted a lot of money, haven't we? And this is where we talk about the team that played on Friday night. A lot of them should have been putting in a shift there and giving Kieran a real headache. Cajuste, for me, I wanted you to come to him because he's a massive cross. He's a massive cross. He's a player, for me, he's got the size, he's got the physique that obviously can play in the Premier League. In this division, people were saying before the season, he's going to be a cheat code. He just coasts through games. He doesn't do enough. He doesn't score. He doesn't assist. He can't tackle. He might do a little pirouette in the middle of the pitch and everyone thinks, oh, wow, that looked good. But where does it lead to? It doesn't. It just leads to nothing. So, but then we've got him on an obligation, if we get promoted, to sign him. Akpom, another one. Like Ian said, we've gone off. He was the Championship top scorer from 2 years ago. And, oh, yeah, we'll get him in. We've got an obligation to buy him. So the whole recruitment team, I think even if we get promoted or we don't, needs looking at, because we haven't got it right. We've got it right in certain positions. I know you're not going to get every transfer you make right, but there's been more misses, isn't there, than hits.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I knew your views on Kaius to Rich, and I thought we need another pod for that. So I thought,
I think there's only one club in British football who's had such a hash of recruitment over us, and that's probably Manchester United. And it's interesting that in November last year, we recruited a new head of recruitment, Mick Court, from Manchester United. Yeah, so he left that club in shit state, come to ours, and his first procurement for talent ID was a guy with very little experience beyond maybe Birmingham in the FA. So, we could look in the managerial side of the club as well, from likes of Mick Court, to bring in better talent.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Let's hope they all, the players are there. They're the only ones in the position that can prove us fans wrong in terms of when we're saying about tick sections and cross sections. Obviously, we are all Ipswich fans. We want the team to do well. We want these players to do well. So let's hope that they can prove certain fans wrong and really push for the last 16 games now. 16 games, have to pick up as many points as possible. Thank you guys for a great chat. I think we needed to get a bit out there of some frustration from the game, and I feel better, so I hope you both do too. Thank you everybody for watching. Please like and subscribe, and please get involved in the comments below. Our recruitment, our new players, what you think of them, and do you think that we can actually get enough points to get promoted in these last 16 games?